You just got your asses whipped by a bunch of goddamn nerds. Nerds!
Welcome back, everybody, to Nerds Podcast. This is Cole, the kid at heart right here. And this time around, we are going to be talking about the DC Universe. We're super excited about this. As you guys know, James Gunn, that was doing all of the Guardians of the Galaxy for Marvel, ended up going over to DC. And he is going to be taking over this whole entire universe, just like Feige and his brother on the Marvel side. So we are extremely excited about it. He comes out with the first segment of his universe. It's called Creature Commandos. Very interesting. I'm going to throw it to Pedro. Pete, what do you think about the show and where James Gunn is taking us with this?
Pedro, you're a professional. You're on mute.
Again, we're learning to walk here. Very skeptical, like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man show that we talked about last time, when Creature Commandos was announced to lead this off, like Cole said, to lead off his universe under his watch. He led it off with Creature Commandos. And this is the same guy who made Guardians of the Galaxy popular, you know. As a comic book head, as a comic book fan, I really didn't know too much about them. And when his movie came out, they, all of a sudden they're mainstream. So me being skeptical is one thing, but when I see who it was who was handling this, I was, I'm on board, was watching day one, and I was very surprised at how well each of these characters was written. There's a main storyline in 7 episodes, but then each episode has like a backstory of each character, which I thought was perfect. I've watched it a couple times now. I've watched the series twice. The episodes are not long, but all in all, these are characters I've never, really heard before, except for Weasel, who was in the Suicide Squad movie that James Gunn directed for DC as well. But the Bride, Nina, GI Robot, Dr. Phosphorus, really didn't know much about them, and he hit it out the park with this. The writing, the backstories of each character in each episode, to me, was really done well.
Well, what you think about this, as far as where James Gunn just came out of nowhere and said this is going to be our first installment of the DCU, and what do you think about the actual show?
I thought the show was great. I think he did the same exact thing that he did with Guardians of the Galaxy. He let every character build up. He give us a backstory on everybody: Bride, Dr. Phosphorus, Weasel, that P-Man, GI Robot, Nina, even Frankenstein, Rick Flag as well. I love the fact this. I don't think it was the first installment, guys. I do. This kind of like took over after Peacemaker, if I'm correct. So for those that didn't watch Peacemaker, this kind of took after an event in Peacemaker where they weren't allowed to use humans as part of their program. So Creature Commandos takes a lot of things that you remember to be horror stories and put them into it. I think James Gunn has a genius way of putting things that you would never normally read or watch. Take that comic book cinematic universe and wow us. Whether it's animated like Creature Commandos is, or Guardians of the Galaxy that's in live action. So I took this as a follow up to Peacemaker because that's what it felt like. And so to play off that and not just kind of cut off the previous DC installments or universe, I thought was genius. I was like, I'm not going to ignore that some of this stuff did happen. I'm going to play off of it. I'm like everyone. I like the meats and potatoes, the Superman, the Batman, Joker. I love the meat and potatoes. I am in awe when they can bring in these characters like Frankenstein and or the Bride of Frankenstein and make it that makes sense. With all the lore that I know of Frankenstein, with all the other stuff of different things that I know of World War II, bringing that kind of stuff in. Shout out to Sergeant Rock that made an appearance. I from the first scene to the ending portion of it, James Gunn had me at hello. He had me at hello with this. Again, I'll go back to it and I'll say it. Never skip the intro. Love the beats, the music that went with it. Never skipped it. I was rocking out to it. But you know, to take I think this is a 1980 comic book, if I can remember. And I remember my father had he did have a Creature Commandos comic book. He only had one or two. He didn't have many. I felt like a kid again. Watching this, and this is adult, and they showed some adult stuff in this, and I love it when we can take an animated series and make it serious, and that's what he did. This introduction to James Gunn's mind when it comes to DC Universe. If you want to see what the universe is going to look and feel like, watch Creature Commandos, because it's going to give you a serious tone, a comedic tone, and it's going to give you that life essence. I think that he brought to this. That's why overall, before we get into the all the details of this, James Gunn deserves some type of a raise on because again, as soon as he took over DC, how is he going to do Superman? How is he going to do the Joker, Batman? How is he going to bring those characters in? Right, the meat and potatoes of those universes. To do it this way, I mean, MCU started with Iron Man, right? MCU started with Iron Man.
Yeah,
am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To start it off with Creature Commandos is daring, right? And but James Gunn is not a person that hides behind the screen. I think it threw me for a little bit. It was a little bit vainish of him to put himself in the credits, but
I like that.
You like that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't even him. It was the writers, the ones that were helping out with the boards. They're the one that had the idea.
Really?
Yeah, it
well,
wasn't.
Then I'm gonna put it back on you. Tell me exactly how you feel, but start off with that because I didn't know that James Gunn did not want himself there.
No, not that he didn't want it. They just came up with a brilliant idea to say, "Hey, let's put you on here." And what they ended up doing was when he seen the final cut and everything, he was like, just leave it. Who cares?" Right? What's pretty cool about that though is that the last scene is always written on the computer. So if you could zoom in and see, you'll see the last scene of what's going on, except for Weasel because of the dramatic way it ended. But yeah, I mean, we're super excited, aren't we? Like, it's finally come. We've been watching DC movies, live actions or animated, and let me tell you, DC started back in 1939. It was called Action Comics, and at first, what they were doing was just writing good stories, and they kind of lost that a little bit when they were doing these movies. I understand that during the movies, there's times where, things just don't work out, whether it's production, whether it's an actor, writers quit, so on and so forth. Things can happen. But finally, I think we're going to have some full structure to this DC universe that is deservingly so. because the stories that DC writes is like Puba was saying, they hit home. They talk about real life events. Although they use a lot of fictional geographic places, they still hit you where what we're going through in life. Uh, to start off with Commandos, I'm not surprised. From what I understand, James Gunn was talking about that with this universe, he wants to do monsters and gods, and he went with monsters. Doing it animated was smart because the special effects would have been cost like it would have been off the roof, out of this world. Because you got Clayface in this show, you got Dr. Phosphorus, which you can imagine just him alone. You want to make sure he looks right. So for him to go animated is perfect because it allows him to just be free and draw these characters in the vision that he had. Overall, the show was just amazing. Most of these monsters are the original horror monsters. So you got, werewolf. You got the monster of Frankenstein. You got
The creature from the Black
the
Lagoon type
creature
of
from the Black Lagoon. You just read my mind exactly. Like you got all these, old monsters that were actually, for me in my mind, the first comic book heroes out there. But they'll take the comic book and make it more into a graphic novel. That's why it's a little more deeper. Yes, this is not for kids. So if you're gonna watch this show, just make sure that the little ones are not around. It's very, very graphic. I'm not a fan of gore, but I think the way they did the gore in this show enlightened me. They were clever with it. There were things that happened within the show that I was like, oh shoot, this is funny to me, and this is pretty cool. But overall, I like the fact that he not only started off with this group, but there's not going to be no origin stories of those characters that Dwell was talking about, like Superman and Batman. We know these stories a lot of times. So he's just going right into it and trying to explain to you what monsters are in this universe. So overall, it was wonderful. I like the animation and everything. It was really, really good.
Yeah,
So
it felt like those Batman animated series kind of felt like that. Like I got everything. I got everything that I needed on animation wise. You hit the nail on the head with that. So what else, Cole? Do you think were you guys okay with the 7 series?
With
Like the 7
what,
episodes?
7 episodes? It's better to have it shorter for me than to have a season that's 26 episodes long, and then you get the break for the holidays, and then you're waiting till February to get new episodes. Nah, once these series, I think when the Netflix series came out with Daredevil and Jessica Jones and the Defenders, those series were 13 episodes, which I think is perfect. So Amazing Spider-Man was 10. Creature Commandos was 7. I mean, if the writing is good enough, what's the point of dragging it out? If the story is good enough, then you can tell it in doesn't matter how many episodes. You don't have to stretch it out for a whole season because you're contractually obligated to do it until when May or something. So nah, it's fine with me. I got no problem with that. I mean, yeah, of course, leaves you wanting more, but I'd rather get a good story in 7 episodes than have them stretch it out until freaking May. And there's some episodes there that you don't even care about because they're going off, they're going off script. So I got no issue with 7 episodes.
yeah, I gotta agree with Pete on that one. Especially like if you watch this show, I think everything that needed to be told upon that show was already given out. The 7 episodes, the duration is only about a half an hour or so, and it was just enough for you to just stay stuck in tune, never lose a beat, and the way the twists and turns of the show have you always thinking, who's really the bad guy here? Yeah, I think they knocked it out the box with the length of the show. Anything else would have been a filler, and we don't need many fillers. That's for sure.
I think it goes back to what you said, Cole. I think it's we didn't need to know too many of the backstories, even though they gave us the backstories. And there was never you know how some animated series can do a throwaway episode? I didn't feel like any of this stuff was thrown away.
Not at all. Everything was like really, really connected. You know, like for me, my favorite episode was Weasel, because the way James Gunn, when he did Guardians, it's a Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's a tree and a raccoon. And who cares about a tree and a raccoon? How are you gonna make that cool? How is those two characters gonna be all right? But I'm starting to learn. If anyone out there saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it really hit home, because you can tell that James he has some sort of compassion when it comes to animals. So the Weasel episode really was the most exciting for me, because the way he portrays animals and how we look at these monsters that sometimes they might not be. For those that haven't seen it, please enjoy, like, subscribe to our podcast, ring that bell, and also comment. We're willing to answer any of your questions. Hey, Duel.
Talk to me.
Out of that whole crew, who's your favorite character? And if you have one.
I did have a couple of them. Nina reminded me of my daughter. So I was a big fan of hers. I didn't understand how she fit until the dramatic end. There are spoilers on here, guys. So if you didn't want to spoil it, you should have tuned off like 5 minutes ago.
Don't tune off.
Yeah. But I have to say G.I. Robot. G.I. Robot was my favorite character in the whole thing, because he had one agenda, the Nazis. Anything that he spoke about, he went right back to it. Like, it doesn't matter. If you be like, yo, this burrito is fantastic. Did Nazis make it? And if they did, where did they make it at? I want to kill some Nazis. You look like you're cool. You want to kill some Nazis with me? So it's like me with you guys with zombies. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you want to play some zombies? Want to get on right now? It doesn't matter. Hey, I'm on my vacation. Did you bring your PlayStation with you? G.I. Robot was dope. And another Easter egg, if you notice, he had number 2 on his helmet. I think in the comic books there's 6 of them. So even though dramatically how he just kind of blew up, and I think we'll see him again, which I'm excited to see him, because I think it's just dope. I think his storyline, I think with the white supremacists getting it was funny to me, because we take that when we take, again, I don't want to get too political, but when we take it that far, and G.I. Robot was like, yeah, Nazis, good. Let me shoot him up. Even when they introduced him on the show, and it felt like an Ed Sullivan type of show. When they show him, he was scanning. He was looking for Nazis to shoot up. You know what I'm saying?
He was playing Jenga, and he brought out
here's the thing. I think in life, when you look for something, you're gonna find it. Regular in all forms of fashion, if you look for something, you're gonna find it. G.I. Robot was looking for the Nazis, and it was fun to see him again. So real quickly, I don't want to go too long, but Sergeant Rock, my father had a bunch of Sergeant Rock comic books. I know we talked about this in the first episode, why I love comic books so much, but my father was in love with Sergeant Rock. Like, if my father was a gay man, Sergeant Rock would have been his dude. Yeah, my father's with Sergeant Rock listening to the Beatles. But Sergeant Rock was my dad's dude, and he had a bunch of Sergeant Rock comic books. So I read about Easy Company way before this. And the scene where they're trapped in the woods and he just goes. I mean, the whole GI Robot thing is fantastic, and the animation behind it was dope. I think in particular because even as a robot, I think at one point when he was like, "There's Nazis," you felt him smile. You know, but his jaw just goes up and down, and it's like phosphorus. He goes, "Yeah, I'm smiling, but you wouldn't know it." But for me, I lean towards GI Robot because I had history with Easy Company as a kid, and I found it hilarious, just hilarious. The guy went out all of his way to buy GI Robot to get slain by him. So the storyline behind GI Robot, I think, was phenomenal.
What about you, Pete? You got any favorite characters out of the whole crew?
So to piggyback off of what Puba said about Sergeant Rock, you know, and like he said in the first episode, we kind of said how we got into comics, and I used to see Sergeant Rock comics when I was, you know, but no thanks. I was 5, 6 years old. I didn't want a comic book about the army. I wanted Batman, Superman. Those are the comics I wanted. So I did know about Sergeant Rock for years, I did not know any backstory. But as far as favorite of the series, it's The Bride. The Bride to me was so badass. Like, you know, she, you know, and we put it in the titles. There's gonna be spoilers here. This is a series that already ended a couple weeks ago. But she fought Cersei and didn't, you know, and Cersei's, you know, Cersei's up there. Cersei's no scrub.
And not Cersei from Game of Thrones, guys.
And she went and she went toe to toe with Cersei, you know what I mean? And The Bride to me was just badass. Overall, just her character, her attitude, it was to me it was dope. Well, again, all these characters are well written. But to me it was The Bride. And I love the fact that the end, the last episode when she's talking to Nina, trying to convince her to do what they wanted her to do, she was like, "Oh, I thought you said you weren't my friend," and she said, "I lied because I'm a bitch." I love that. I thought that was hilarious. That was hilarious. But for me, The Bride, hands down.
That's awesome. For me, I do like the story of the Weasel. That's for sure. Only because from what I know in the comic books, the Weasel was actually a serial killer that would dress up in costume as a weasel, and he would commit these murders and stuff like that. But here they kind of switched it up. So when James Gunn did Suicide Squad, ended up making him more of an animal, right? And like Duell was saying earlier, not only does this show play off of Peacemaker, where you get to see characters from that show move to this show, but also, if you notice, Weasel, when he was in Suicide Squad and he fell in the water, he can't swim. So he was not sent to kill the princess because he can't swim. And then looking at him, he looks so hideous. He looks like a monster. And that's the first thing we quick to judge right away. But when you see the story and the way James Gunn portrayed him, I ended up falling in love with that character, seeing that, hey, underneath all that, he just wants to have fun. He wants to have crazy fun and just have a blast. He just wants to play. And, you know, it just hits me in the heart. So all these characters are wonderful. But Weasel, for me, I like this transition of that character and the way they portrayed him.
Can I ask a question, Cole, if it's okay with you, brother? And this one's to you. What was your favorite fight scene?
Oh, man. Gosh.
Because there's a lot. There's one thing about this show. It's action-packed. You're not going to be bored. There's not a scene where you get bored. But I want to know, what was your favorite fight scene?
There is a lot, but gosh, favorite, it's really
okay.
Tough.
Well, I'll take it back. One that comes to mind.
Well, I have two that comes to mind. There's one quick one. It's not even a fight. I like when Dr. Phosphorus has his two middle fingers up, and he burns right through the guys' faces. Just that scene alone, I was like, oh, this is amazing. But as far as like fight scenes, has to be the Monster of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's Bride. It reminds me of the Wolverine origin when you see Sabretooth and Wolverine fighting wars throughout time, and you see them in a timeline of them constantly going at it because this guy is completely whipped, loves her to death. I mean, to death. And borderline stalker out there for those that he can get real creepy when it comes to it. He even looked at the sergeant and got a little jealous, thinking that they had a thing, and the sergeant's like, "No, man, no, she's a corpse. I'm not gonna get down."
I think he
like
quoted
that.
Titanic and When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, which I thought
He
was.
said, "No, I don't think it's that way."
Yeah, he's like, no. But the fight scenes with him and her going at it through the timeline, I enjoyed that the most.
Yes,
That was a lot of fun. So by far, that was probably one of my favorite fight scenes for sure.
Yeah, Pete, tell me yours.
I already said it. Cersei and the Bride. The Bride to me was the show, and it's hard to do that in this series because they all kind of held their own. But she to me was just like it's like that last line when she said to Nina, "Oh yeah, I lied because I'm a bitch." I cracked up at that shit. I was not expecting that, but they were trying to get her, like you said, Weasel was out of the equation because he couldn't swim. So, but of course, who can swim is Nina.
Yeah.
And like they said, she has the advantage when she's in water. So to me, it's the Bride, and the montage was awesome, and we haven't really spoke a lot about him, but Eric Frankenstein was awesome.
Yeah, that by far is my second favorite
He
character.
was really good, and the actor who portrayed him, David Harbour, I hope I'm saying his name right. He was really good. The way he played him was great. Um, and he's kind of like he's not one of the main characters because the main characters are of course the Commandos, but he was really good. He was really good in this, and he had humor, and then like you said, it came off creepy because he's freaking stalking her over years, and she wants nothing to do with him.
That's the beauty of it. That she
And
wants
he
nothing to
talk
do with
about
him.
don't take no for an answer. It's this guy. But yeah, my
But do you
fight
blame
scene.
him? Like his dad smashed his wife. Like
That was for me. That was wow. I was just like, wow, this is going. I mean, if you're gonna push the limit, if you're gonna push it, holy smokes, that kind of I was disgusted by it. Let's keep it real, animated or not. I'm like, yo, this is wild right now. Now I know there's like there's probably a story out there. There's a lot of weirdos out there, and holy smokes,
is real in this show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
As we said it before, this is not for kids.
I was like, whoa, okay, he's going there. All right, there we go. That's it. It's his show. You know what I'm saying? So knock it out. But it kind of could have been maybe it wasn't a necessary scene, but then you kind of see why his obsession drove him to kill him and get him out the way, and then create this hatred that she has for him because that was like he said. He created her, and she was obviously she was in love with him, and then he took him away from her. So that's where that for me that hatred was just that's where that's where it was they struck it right there was boom, you killed the only man that I loved, that who brought me into this world and showed me everything I knew, the necklace that she ended up going back for. So yeah, to me that maybe too much of cross the line. Understand that completely, but somewhat necessary to see where the obsession went overboard, and that's why she despises this man. Like she can't stand anything about him. But I get it that it was a little whoa, but
I'm still rooting for them. I'm still rooting for them.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. The Bride is not gonna make that happen. Look, everything about her was so cool. She was the one that actually figured out what was really going on at the end of it all. And the way they drew her, I like her trench coat. I also like her photo of her with the two middle fingers up, like, yo, I'm the bride, you know? She was badass, a very great character. That part right there, I don't think I don't think they needed to have sex for him
They
to
needed
feel a
they needed
certain
that for the
way.
gut punch, in my opinion.
But
In my opinion,
whoa,
they needed that for Frankenstein's gut punch. You needed that
well,
because
you got punched me
anybody in
with
any
that.
relationship, the worst thing that you could do is walk into something like that. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to get that gut punch. I'm going to retract a little bit, and I'm going to tell you that my favorite fight scene was Flag and Phosphorus. That fight scene was so amazing. When he took off his gloves so he could burn a little bit more.
That was cool.
That Red Flag put on the oven mitts to mess with him. There's
So
a
he won't
scene
get
that
burned.
gets so missed, and I've watched this fight scene about 4 or 5 times. I'm not gonna lie. He grabs a cup of water, he boils it, and then throws it back, and you can hear the sizzling on Flag's face.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yo,
because
they burned, they burned
they're
down
still
like they were.
suicide squadish. There's these guys are unreliable in their mental state, and you're still putting them together. You're still sending them far, and you're hoping that a Flag, because it's the second Flag, because Junior passed away again right after Peacemaker. So you know he already has resentment towards these people. I felt like he had resentment. That's why he was so mean to them, because he's like, this is the same type of group that my son died with. So, but again, that's why I love that scene so much, because there's a little bit of history there for Flag, and he could have just exploded his head.
See, but that's the thing, right? What you just said, I don't agree with that, because at the end of that fight, Flag tells him, he goes, look, man, I just want to do this job. And God forbid Waller finds out about this. I'm not going to tell her. Now, if he really felt that way, he would have shocked her and he would have snitched on him automatically. So I don't know. I think he had a whole other agenda when it came to that. But and also just to add with that fight, which I thought was dope, the house was burning and they were falling down the floors. I thought that was cool too.
Batman, I gotta go with Pedro on this one. Batman makes an appearance in this series, and from what I'm understanding, it's the way Batman is gonna look moving forward. A lot of the stuff that happened in this animated series is the way things are gonna happen, and that's what I love about this. By the way, I love the fact that everything that you're seeing here matters. If you're gonna fall in love with this DC universe, please watch this show, because what happens here matters in the real world. But I gotta ask Pedro, how did you feel when you saw your dude in this show?
Well, last episode we spoke the Spider-Man series. You asked me about the cameos, and there's nothing. This series doesn't fall short of that either. A lot of cameos, and flashback scenes. Um, and the Batman showing up was cool, of course. I'm not really gonna. There's nothing, you're asking the wrong person if you think I'm gonna see any fault in that. But when when the episode came out and they ran it by James Gunn, they had more Batman in there, and he said no, not yet, because they haven't finalized anything with him yet as far as design. That's why you see the silhouette of him, and that's all you really see. But there was going to be more, and he said, "Nah, we don't want to do too much, because we don't know what design we're going to go with yet." You know what I mean? You look at Superman, if the movie coming out in July, the emblem is completely different than anything we've ever seen. So who knows what he's going to do as far as that's concerned? Because Batman as well has had a whole bunch of different emblems as well throughout, throughout since creation. So I'm okay with that. That was a tease, and I'm all right with that. That's just to let. And there was another one as well. There was the flashback scene when they showed like if what would happen if the princess took over. You see a lot of you know dead bodies in the background. You see Peacemaker. You see Wonder Woman. You see Um, you see Batman as well.
You
But
see Vigilante too.
yeah,
He's
and
in
yeah,
there.
yeah, and she's chilling with Grodd. So not that he was dead, but he was, he was on her side. But no issue at all with that tease because that's what it was. I wouldn't even. It's a cameo, but it's more of a tease because they didn't show that much at all.
Very cool.
For me, it has to be Clayface. I mean, I did like seeing Batman there. It was cool because he is the greatest detective, so he needs to know. He was there, saw what was going on. He probably left, made a file about Dr. Phosphorus, and just keep tabs on him. But the best cameo was Clayface because he was so involved. And you was talking about fight scenes. How about the fight with him and the monster of Dr. Frankenstein? That was pretty cool too. And Dr. The monster of Frankenstein, he ends up in order to stop Clayface, because how can you stop Clayface, right? He can shift and morph into whatever he wants. He can separate. He can get larger, smaller. He
He
can
can
do.
drown you with that
He,
clay. Yeah.
and yeah, remind me of I think Nightmare on Elm Street, one of them, where Freddy Krueger was coming out the head like that, and he pops out. Oh, when when he did that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really gruesome right now. And in order to get away from it, he shocked himself. When he shocks, when the monster of Dr. Frankenstein shocks himself, he's laughing with joy because that's how he was created. So yeah, Clayface playing a role and a part in this, bringing him, I thought was brilliant, because it shows me that, okay, all these characters already live in this universe, and we're just getting right into it, which is great.
How did you guys feel about Nina? Like that last scene. Um, did you want her to live, or were you just like, man, they shouldn't have just taken her out?
Someone had to die. I think someone definitely had
But
to
didn't
die.
GI Robot already die?
Well, he's a robot. He can be replaced. A soul can't be replaced, right? So her origin story was pretty cool too, because it's about a father that's trying to better hit the handicap of his daughter. And I like this scene because it's talking about how the mom like couldn't take it, even though he built like this tank so she can breathe and just be a normal child, or try closely to be a normal child. And the mom was like, oh, I can't take this. That kind of hurt me. I was like, wow, I'm telling you, the whole writing of this show really hits home. I love using that phrase because when I say hits home, it's homecoming, baby. And with that, but with that, Nina, she was inexperienced. She was even afraid to fight. I think the last fight scene when GI Robot was going ham, uh, her and Weasel, they ran for cover, and it's not in her blood. So knowing the princess, she already had this demonic plan of what she wants to go about it. Nina had the opportunity to take her out, and she hesitated. And once you hesitate, the tables got turned on her. And then when the princess came out after killing Nina with that innocent face, I thought that was cool. And yeah, why not? Why not let her pass away? Because yeah, somebody had to die.
Pete?
She like he said before, she didn't have it in her. Her and Weasel, they're not killers. They're like they don't have what the Bride and Dr. Phosphorus have. They can get it done. These two can't. And someone made a comment on an article saying, why does why does every villain nowadays have to be a victim of circumstance and not just be bad, not just be evil, like an evil person, like a bad person? But because all of these characters were victims of circumstance. Dr. Phosphorus was a doctor, but he just got caught up with the mob and ended up the way he did. Um, Nina, unfortunately, the experiment that her father performed on her didn't work out, and it turned her into somewhat of a freak, and that's how they saw her, and that's how, and she did nothing wrong. She was just different, and that's when they took her into custody. But Nina, like you said, somebody did have to die, I guess, for shock value. And it also shows that they sent the wrong person, and they should, again, it was a mistake. Like Waller said, we made a mistake. Of course, it was too late, but the person they sent was the wrong one. And unfortunately, she was the one who had to pay for it.
Well, no, I didn't want Nina to die. Actually, I liked her character. I thought she brought heart and soul to a team that had none. And I think on the last part of that mission, they lost their heart and soul. Which again, I'm okay with. But if I wanted a character to live, it would have been her. Weasel can't die. After Suicide Squad 2, after that, Weasel's he's like Thanos. He's inevitable at this point in time. So, but no, I get it. That's all. I did have an issue with one of the things on the show, though. The Sons of Themyscira. I didn't like that there were some backwash alley trailer park guys with a bunch of guns. When these guys are actually Amazonian, the kids of Themyscira, but because they're men, they get kicked off the island. So the way they portrayed the Sons of Themyscira, I didn't think they got their due in this show. I get the take. And if you're going to take a take, go all the way left, like Spider-Man being from the Bronx. So I was okay with it. But I'm thinking they're going to make a Themyscira movie later down this year or next year that James Gunn has plans.
Lost Paradise.
Yeah, correct. Lost Paradise. And what a cool way to actually portray the Sons of Themyscira. Because, again, the question is why aren't any men on this island? How do they keep reproducing if there's no men? But there are men. And they are the lost Sons of Themyscira. And the fact that they were with Cersei saved it for me. But the fact that they were kind of, again, hillbilly dudes that play around with their cousins, I wasn't a fan of it. I wasn't a fan of that portion of the show. If I had to say anything, if I had one gripe, that was the only gripe I had, because I thought the rest of it, as a standalone show, was genius. Because no one in the big head of all the stuff that we love knew who the Creature Commandos were. Same with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And James Gunn has a way of kind of bringing this stuff to life and relatable. That's the one thing that we loved about. We saw a little bit of ourselves in Rocket. We saw a little of ourselves in Star-Lord. Now I see a little bit of myself in some of these other people, like Misunderstood, like Weasel, circumstances of things that can happen in life. And I think this show does a phenomenal job of that.
I mean, this show right here is, again, for adults. There's strip clubs, there's prostitutes, there's sex, there's foul language, extreme violence, gore. So once again, it's not made for the weak. If you're going to watch this show, please enjoy it. Goes to, I want to ask you guys, I personally don't like gore. I like the Boy Scout innocence of these comic book movies and shows. But there are other shows out there like The Boys, Invincible, that can show more gore and more realistic takes on these comic book characters. I'll start with you, Duel. What do you think about this, and how do you feel that they portray more of this adult content?
What's the best Wolverine movie that you saw, Cole? Is it Logan?
The best Wolverine movie?
Is it Logan?
Absolutely Logan.
And I'm going to tell you, right, and part of to answer your question, right? Part of what we loved about Logan is we never saw the raw version of Wolverine. And I think that they fluff us with some of the powers and things of nature. I mean, we saw Captain America hit a punching bag and knock it across the room. But what if you punch someone like that? What does that really look like? And I think we hide from some of that stuff. Like, um, great power comes great responsibility. Do you have the responsibility enough to hold back? And for the most part, I think as much as we look at these people in the comic book world as other things of that nature, as they're like us. They're not like us. And I think for the most part, we want to show what ends to what is the highest power we can see these people at. What are they like at full power? I think shows like The Boys, Creature Commandos, especially when Weasel was scratching up Cersei, and the bride goes, "You wanted monsters? This is what it looks like." And when we ask ourselves, if the best movie of Wolverine is Logan, and he's slicing and dicing the same way we always wanted to see Wolverine. We wanted to see that Wolverine, regardless of what it is. And again, it's not pretty. It's going to be gory. It's going to be bloody. I think for the most part, we want to see what Superman would look like, um, punching through the Joker. We want to see what it looks like when he beams it through someone's face, through his eyes. We want to see that thing. We don't want to admit it. I think for the most part, we don't want to admit it. But what makes The Boys, Invincible, and Creature Commandos amazing is that we see these characters at their full potential, and it should be scary. And I don't think you can give off that fear by, I want to use your word, Boy Scout. What's the word you use, right?
Mhm.
The Boy Scout look doesn't give you that. We live in a world where things are in our face, and there's a reality to this world that we kind of hid it from that. I mean, I've always wanted to see what Superman versus Hulk looks like. I've always wanted to see Batman versus Iron Man. What would that the tail end? And it goes back to Joker and Batman to me. To end this all is when Batman asks him, "Do we have to kill ourselves? Do we have to go this far and go ahead and kill ourselves to make this end?" And the answer is yes, but it won't happen between those two. It's going to happen with amongst the world. No one's going to have the reserve that Batman has. No one's going to have the reserve of what Daredevil has, because Daredevil also doesn't want to kill. And there should be the other side of it. There should be the other side of what does it look like when a character, hero or villain, goes all the way. I'm okay with the shows that are showing it, and I'm okay with the shows that are not showing it. Because I don't think we've ever seen even though it's very bloody in the comic books, the Ninja Turtles, we've never seen the Ninja Turtles at their full thing. I mean, they're when they're hitting the Foot Clan with a sai or with a sword, they're chopping things up in the comic books. But because we want to show this cute version of the Ninja Turtles, we never show that. When it does come out, don't be shocked. At one point, I think it will come out when they show the Ninja Turtles at what their full strength, what that looks like, what that feels like. It should show what their full person are. But again, for me, I'm okay with it. I think you can gravitate between the two. You don't always have to show the gore and that. But I do think that it's necessary because the greatest shows and the greatest comic books that I've read have tragedy behind them, have gore behind them, because it's real. You can't have this immense power and not show what it's capable of. That's my take.
I think the way I feel about it is that I get that full impact without having to see any gore. What about you, Pete? How do you feel about comic books that are gory compared to those that don't need to be so gory?
I don't look for the gore, but when it's there, it's like, oh shit, and but watching The Boys, watching Invincible, it kind of like prepares you for it. So it's like The Boys, especially, there's been some cringe moments in The Boys. And I guess maybe because that's live action as well. But I don't look for the gore, nor do I mind it. But if you gave me if I had to choose, I can do without it. Especially if it's not, if it's forced. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, there's no need for that. If it's, part of the story, this is something that needed to be kind of displayed in the correct way, then okay, it's fine. If it's part of the story and it's something that needed to be seen, then that's fine. But if it's just gore for the sake of gore, then like Mortal Kombat, then then I'm not, it doesn't, again, if it's not for the story, it doesn't make any sense to me. Um, but again, I kind of just like react to it and I just I keep it moving with it. It's not something that will have me not want to watch a show and say, well, I'm watching it for this, and I'm not watching it because of this. But one thing I will say, as far as why DC's going this route with, you know, watching the bride having sex with Dr. Frankenstein, watching GI Robot pretty much slicing through Nazis with ammunition. Marvel is right now was the top dog. They're the most successful, and they've kind of kept it clean. So you know what? Let's kind of go away from that and let's do our own thing and let's kind of take it past. Let's go past the line. Let's take it there, just so we can kind of differentiate ourselves from Marvel. Even though there's the same genre, it's comic book characters and movies, but let's kind of do our own thing so we can get away from them. So no one says, "Oh yeah, you know what? They're just biting off of Marvel. They're copying off of Marvel." So that's why you have the boys, which is a different take. It's their own universe with their own heroes. Same thing with Invincible. Same thing, their own universe with their own heroes. And DC is the same as well. Now, having James Gunn take over and do his own thing, he said, well, I'm going to do this. These characters are going to have sex because you know what? In the real world, people do have sex. You know what I mean? And there is instances where there's gore and there's blood and there's gore out there. So that's how I see it. It doesn't bother me. I know it's coming, and that's it.
That GI robot scene, it felt like Pearl Harbor, right? Like, wasn't one of the soldiers trying to put their intestines back
No,
into their stomach?
that's from Saving Private Ryan.
I'll tell you
Private Ryan.
this. I'll tell you this. It reminded me of, I think it was the latest Rambo, right? So Rambo, Sylvester Stallone ends up getting on top of this Jeep that has a gun attached to it, and he's going ham on these cats, and he's ripping them up, and I was like, holy shit! Like this shit is fucking gory. That's what it reminded me of. GI Robot was very similar to that scene in Rambo. Very similar.
Yeah, no, it reminded me of Saving Private Ryan. That one
Saving
scene
Private
where I saw
Ryan.
the guy trying to put his guts back into his stomach
Yes.
was from the Normandy when they stormed the beach. And that was the first time I saw something like that was Saving Private Ryan.
Hey, Duel, how far is too far when it comes to?
I think when the main focus is the gore and not the storyline. Well, let me ask you guys straight up: were you guys okay with the gore in this show?
Yeah, I had no problem with it. It's monsters, so you're gonna see some blood.
Pete took the words right out of my mouth. They're monsters, so I totally get it. I was okay with the gore on here, not the sex scenes.
The volume.
Yeah, no, but the gore, absolutely, because they're monsters, right? And I think
we saw kids die on this show. They show kids dying on this show. That's crazy to me.
I mean, again, it's very adult. But what I would say is, right, I think I wouldn't mind seeing a villain be gory, but I never want to see my heroes take it there. And I think if it ends up becoming that, like the Green Lantern ends up slicing someone for some reason, I'm not going to be a fan of it at all. I want them to keep that innocence of why you chose to be a hero. Now, if the villain does it, then by all means. Joker blows up a city, I get it, because he's the Joker, or Penguin, or whoever, anyone that you can think of. But
I think the Joker should be gory.
Leave my heroes alone.
The Joker should be gory.
Yeah, probably so. I got one last question for y'all. Do you guys believe that, are we going to see any of these characters in live action? Pete?
So when James Gunn first took over, I know he had that big like I guess like a presentation on YouTube. His plan was whoever is voicing if it's animation and they're voicing a character, you will see that actor play the same character in live action. Frank Grillo, who was Crossbones in the MCU, he is he is Rick Flag Sr. and he is in the new Superman movie. If you see the some of the pictures from the movie, and Superman's being, I guess, detained, he's there. He's there. He's Rick Flag. So and then you see Amanda Waller. She was the voice. Viola Davis was the voice of Amanda Waller. She was in Suicide Squad. So yeah, that this to me is I love this. I mean, I know it's not easy because as far as salary is concerned, but I'm sure that because he's starting fresh, he can get these people to say, okay, this is in your contract. When we do animation, we need you to do the voice. And I know they did that in What If on Disney Plus for not all of them because again, I'm sure some of them were out, priced out of doing voiceover work. But in DCU, from what I understand, that's the way they want to go. When if you do see any of these characters in live action, whoever did their voice in the show, that's who it's going to be in live action.
That's gonna be tough because doesn't Alan Tudyk do both Dr. Phosphorus and Clayface?
He does Clayface and Harley Quinn.
As
Okay.
well, yeah.
I don't know if he does Clayface in this, but I know for sure he does. He does the Joker and Clayface in Harley Quinn.
But
Yeah.
maybe the Clayface in this universe died. Maybe.
Yeah,
And-
yeah. I don't know who did the voice, so we'd have to see. But again, that's going to be motion capture. That's going to be CGI. It's not like we're going to see that actor.
Yeah, I know that James Gunn's idea behind animation and live action are going to be the same. So yes, I do expect it. The guess is now if I gave you $1 million, free $1 million, but you have to bet. You have to bet which of these characters is going to be shown live action.
Weezy,
Outside of Viola Davis, because I don't see anybody else playing Amanda Waller. Do you have any actor out there that you want to see play Amanda Waller?
No.
Well, if you remember I'll give you somebody who's kind of comparable. Even though the movie was not well received, the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds, Amanda Waller was Angela Bassett.
That was okay. She's better the queen of Wakanda.
But actor-wise, she's
Angela Bassett is top notch.
She's legit.
That's Angela Bassett in any movie, it's gonna be good. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Of course.
Yeah, no, that is touche. They didn't think about that one. You brought it back with that because I removed that movie from my Rolodex. So, but yeah, it should be a good Amanda Waller. I'm not gonna lie.
So that's what you're going for. Well, everyone, you can catch Creature Commandos on Max or any of your, you can find it on any streaming. This be the Nerds Podcast. Please do us a favor, like the episode, subscribe, ring that bell, and also send us any of your questions, comments, jump in. We'll chime in with you guys and answer any other questions you got. I'm Cole, the kid at heart. That's Pete. That's Duell. We'll say peace. We see you guys real soon.
Later, y'all. Love y'all so much. Thank you so much.
We will return.
The worst episode ever.